André Maurois, the French novelist, described a country priest who had taken confession for many decades and summed up what he had learned about human nature in this manner. First of all, people are much more unhappy than one thinks, and there is no such thing as a grown-up person. Everyone, and that includes therapists, as well as patients, is destined to experience not only the exhilaration of life, but also its inevitable darkness, disillusionment, aging, illness, isolation, loss, meaninglessness, painful choices, and death. No one put things more starkly and more bleakly than the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. In early youth, as we contemplate our coming life, we are like children in a theater before the curtain is raised, sitting there in high spirits and eagerly waiting for the play to begin. It is a blessing that we do not know what is really going to happen. Could we foresee it? There are times when children might seem like condemned prisoners, condemned, not to death, but to life, and as yet all unconscious of what their sentence means. Or again, we are like lambs in the field, disporting themselves under the eyes of the butcher, who picks out one first and then another for his prey. So it is that in our good days we are all unconscious of the evil that fate may have presently in store for us. Sickness, poverty, mutilation, loss of sight or reason. Though Schopenhauer's view is colored heavily by his own personal unhappiness, still it is difficult to deny the inbuilt despair in the life of every self-conscious individual. My partner and I have sometimes amused ourselves by planning imaginary dinner parties for groups of people sharing similar propensities, for example, a party for monopolists, or flaming narcissists, or artful passive-aggressives. Or, conversely, a happy party to which we invite only the truly happy people we have encountered. Though we've encountered no problems filling all sorts of other whimsical tables, we've never been able to populate a full table for our happy people party. Each time we identify a few characterologically cheerful people and place them on a waiting list while we continue our search to complete the table, we find that one or another of our happy guests is eventually stricken by some major life adversity, often a severe illness, or that of a child or spouse. This tragic but realistic view of life has long influenced my relationship to those who seek my help. Though there are many phrases for the therapeutic relationship, patient/therapist, client/counselor, analyst/analyst, client/facilitator, and the latest M-and, by far, the most repulsive M-user/provider, none of these phrases accurately convey my sense of the therapeutic relationship. Instead, I prefer to think of my patients and myself as fellow travelers, a term that abolishes distinctions between them, the afflicted, and us, the healers. During my training I was often exposed to the idea of the fully analyzed therapist, but as I have progressed through life, formed intimate relationships with a good many of my therapist colleagues, met the senior figures in the field, been called upon to render help to my former therapists and teachers, and myself become a teacher and an elder, I have come to realize the mythic nature of this idea. We are all in this together, and there is no therapist and no person immune to the inherent tragedies of existence. One of my favorite tales of healing, found in Hermann Hesse's Magisterludi, involves Joseph and Dion, two renowned healers, who lived in biblical times. Though both were highly effective, they worked in different ways. The younger healer, Joseph, healed through quiet, inspired listening. Pilgrims trusted Joseph. Suffering and anxiety poured into his ears vanished like water on the desert sand, and penitents left his presence emptied and calmed. On the other hand, Dion, the older healer, actively confronted those who sought his help. He divined their unconfessed sins. He was a great judge, chastiser, scolder, and rectifier, and he healed through active intervention. Treating the penitents as children, he gave advice, punished by assigning penance, ordered pilgrimages and marriages, and compelled enemies to make up. The two healers never met, and they worked as rivals for many years until Joseph grew spiritually ill, fell into dark despair, and was assailed with ideas of self-destruction. Unable to heal himself with his own therapeutic methods, he set out on a journey to the south to seek help from Dion. On his pilgrimage, Joseph rested one evening at an oasis, where he fell into a conversation with an older traveler. When Joseph described the purpose and destination of his pilgrimage, the traveler offered himself as a guide to assist in the search for Dion. Later, in the midst of their long journey together, the old traveler revealed his identity to Joseph. Mirabile dictu, He himself was D&M the very man Joseph sought. Without hesitation D&M invited his younger, despairing rival into his home, where they lived and worked together for many years. D&M first asked Joseph to be a servant. Later he elevated him to a student and, finally, to full colleagueship. Years later, D&M fell ill and on his deathbed called his young colleague to him in order to hear a confession. He spoke of Joseph's earlier terrible illness and his journey to old D&M to plead for help. He spoke of how Joseph had felt it was a miracle that his fellow traveler and guide turned out to be D&M himself. Now that he was dying, the hour had come, D&M told Joseph, to break his silence about that miracle. D&M confessed that at the time it had seemed a miracle to him as well, for he too had fallen into despair. He too felt empty and spiritually dead, and unable to help himself, had set off on a journey to seek help. On the very night that they had met at the oasis he was on a pilgrimage to a famous healer named Joseph. Hesse's tale has always moved me in a preternatural way. It strikes me as a deeply illuminating statement about giving and receiving help, about honesty and duplicity, and about the relationship between healer and patient. The two men received powerful help but in very different ways. The younger healer was nurtured, nursed, taught, mentored, and parented. The older healer, on the other hand, was helped through serving another, through obtaining a disciple from whom he received filial love, respect, and relief from his isolation.